All right, for this demo, I want to show you ways of thinking about adding anticipation to your overall animation. And there's a couple of different tricks that Animate can pull off that makes things go a little bit simpler. In this case, keep in mind, anticipation is really an acting technique. There's a lot of different things that you could do to anticipate the movement of this ball. And in our setup, we've got the ball simply arcing from one side to the other, as if it's being bounced or jumped from that side. So what we want to do is to add some anticipation before that movement happens. Now, in my lecture, you saw the ball either do a simple little squash down before finally springing into the air. You could have it do several little preliminary jumps, building up momentum before it moves over. You could even draw a separate character running up and kicking the ball and going over there. All of that is different ways of doing anticipation. But the main thing is we need to give it time to build up to that animation, and we need to animate that anticipation into the scene that we're creating. So right now, if you go up to our timeline, let's look at the layout that we have. Right now I've got two different layers. Essentially, layer one is the ball that we have, and on top of it is a guideline letting the ball know exactly the trajectory that I want it to go in. As far as the movement, it's a simple tween movement from one position to the other position, and it's got some easing in and easing out along the way. What we need to do first is to shift everything down and give me a couple of seconds to build up some anticipation. To do this, I'm going to go up to my timeline, and I'm going to start by selecting all of the appropriate frames and keyframes that have the movement of the ball going from one side to the other. And I'm going to carefully click on them and shift them down and give myself a few extra frames to start with beforehand. Now, the kind of anticipation I'm going to do for this demo is going to be a simple squishing of the ball and having it pop up to jump to the side. So the next thing I need to do is look in my timeline, and let's add a keyframe before this that indicates him squishing down. So maybe I'll back up a few frames. Right about here on layer one is where I'll add another keyframe. This will be my squish down layer. And of course, in this one, I need to have my ball already present. So let's go and select my ball. I'll copy it, edit, and copy. Jump to that new keyframe that I've selected, and let's paste it right in the same spot, paste in place. With it here, I'm going to squish it down by choosing my free transform tool. And the funny thing about working in Adobe Animate is that if I simply click on one edge and drag down, by default, it's going to scale everything based on the center proportion, and that's not what I want. So I'm going to hold down Option as I click on one edge. With Option held, this will let you squish things down based on that particular edge as the reference point. So we'll have it go down at this point here, and then we'll spend these couple of frames popping back up. The other thing that I need to do is I need to have a starting frame right here. So I'll select my first frame, and this one it's going to start off as a regular position. So let's go back up to Edit, and we'll paste another one in place there. So if we're breaking down our keyframes, it's going to start frame one with it as a full circle. It's going to squish down, pop back up, and then jump. So now let's add some motion tweening between each of these parts. I'll select this first one. We'll control click and create a classic tween to there. And this will animate it squishing. And let's select this one, control click, and add a classic tween between this position. So now it goes down and up and jumps. Now let's deal with the timing of our anticipation. I want it to take a long time to really squash down and then very quickly pop up. So if I look in my timeline, you can see how it's taking just about the same amount of time to go down and up. So all I have to do is to choose my squished moment, and let's bring it in and let it take a shorter amount of time. I can test this by hitting Control and Return. And now you can see it takes its time squashing down and very quickly popping back up. And if I wanted to, I can give it even fewer seconds by clicking on that and moving it in as well. Just make sure you got the right one selected and let's move it in for there. Now if I test it, slowly pops back up. This is really adding that anticipation. One thing that I am missing is some slowing in and slowing out. So let's add it to here as well. For this one, if I want it to start off quickly and then slow in, so this will be a ease out type of ease. So I can go to my label under my properties panel, and let's add some easing out to it. In this case, maybe we'll do a quart type bend. With that, now I can test my movie, and now it's really moving much, much more natural. Now finally, I want to show you a simple trick that you can also do with easing out that adds a little bit more jitter and really emphasizes that anticipation. To do this, again, let's choose our first frame and return to the tweening motion within our properties. Instead of using the ease out type of tweening, we're going to go down to custom and create our own new custom one. So I'm going to double click that. This will give us our own curved line, and you can click on the middle of the line and drag it up. So this will add some custom or easing out to it. Now to really add that jittered effect, I'm going to start to click right about here and then drag down and up multiple times. Essentially, I want to create kind of a roller coaster effect back and forth. And what I'm looking for in this particular movement is to have all of the up and down movements go flat across here. So we don't want to follow the curve just yet. We want it to kind of stutter right here. Then finally, it'll start to finish off the rest of it up here. If I wanted to test it, I can hit the little play button, and this will show you what it looks like as it moves down. Again, you can adjust these as necessary, bringing them closer together to take up a little bit less time, or to have them move in and out a little bit more based on their position. But once you get something that you like, you can do save and apply, and this is what your anticipation will look like now. Again, adds just a little bit more emphasis to its jump before it finally jumps out. Once I'm finished with this, now I've got some good anticipation building up to it. I can animate out the rest of my scene from here.